This is the Transplanted Fan back with you to talk more LA Kings hockey and about the NHL in general. First off, it's been a couple of days since I talked about the Kings, mainly because I was a bit, how should I put this? I was a bit disappointed by the Kings' effort on Saturday against the Vancouver Canucks. I said in my last video that I thought they could easily beat the Canucks, or at least that they should beat them, but instead, of course, they went out and fell behind 4-0. They came back to make it 4-3, so they made a game out of it, but they ended up losing anyway. In the last two games, the Kings have fallen behind 2-0 to Toronto and then 4-0 to Vancouver. They came back to win the Toronto game, but couldn't complete the comeback against Vancouver. Bottom line is, if you're going to win games, you can't fall behind 2 or 3 or 4 goals early on and then expect to come back and win. Then the Kings got a 4-day break and they resume play tomorrow night against the Nashville Predators. I don't know what to expect from that game. Nashville has lost 3 games in a row after having won 4 games in a row. Meanwhile, the Kings, after having their week-long break, and we'll talk more about the break in a minute, after having their week-long break back in February, they have lost 7 out of their last 10 games. So things are not going too good in LA. I still have hope that they make the playoffs, but they certainly are making it tough for themselves. So we'll see what happens tomorrow against Nashville. Do they continue the Predators' woes or do they continue their own woes? We'll see. The other thing I wanted to talk about was that the NHL general managers meetings ended today in Florida, and there were some pretty important topics that came out of those meetings. The first was the fact that the NHL salary cap is going up by a couple of $1 million next year, which is really good for teams like LA who are right up against the salary cap. So that was the first item of information to come out of the GM's meetings. The second was about those bye weeks we talked about. This is the first year that the NHL has used this situation where they give each team a week off in the middle of the season, and the results have not been too good. Most of the teams coming out of that bye week ended up being rusty and not playing very well, and they ended up losing their first game out of the break, if not more than that. The Kings are a perfect example. Like I said, they've lost 7 out of 10 since they had that break. So now the NHL is talking about what they're going to do is they're going to split it down the middle. One conference will get the week off while the other conference keeps playing, and then they're going to reverse it. So that way, for instance, all the teams in the Eastern Conference will get a week off, and then they'll come back and play each other while all the teams in the Western Conference get the week off, or vice versa. If you're going to give a week off, this to me is the only way you can do it. You can't have a couple of teams from each division getting a week off here and there because it's just too hard on the teams when they come back. So that was the first interesting story to come out of the general managers meetings. The second is a story that's been going on for a while. It seems unlikely now that the NHL players will go to South Korea to play in the Olympics in 2018. This has been a battle that has been going on for a while between the NHL and the NHLPA and the International Olympic Committee and the International Ice Hockey Federation. The NHL says they want the IIHF and the IOC to pay all of the players' travel expenses related to going to the Olympics. The players want to go, the NHL doesn't. I think bottom line is that the NHL will go if they think they can make money. But of course, they're saying, well, shutting the entire league down for 3 weeks isn't making us money, and so we need to have a good reason to go, and I can somewhat understand that. But not having the players in the Olympics will certainly be a disappointment. It's not the only reason people watch the Olympics, but it's certainly a big attraction. So we'll see what happens there. There is talks that the NHL does want to go to China in 2022. So maybe we'll take one Olympics off, not have players going in 2018, and then they'll go back in 2022. The Really interesting part of this, however, is that some players have hinted that they don't care what the NHL is going to do, they're going to go anyway. If you remember back in Sochi, Russia, back in 2012, Alexander Ovechkin, the big star for the Washington Capitals, said he didn't care if the NHL went to the Olympics or not. He was going. Now, as it turned out, the NHL players did go to the Olympics, and so there was no big deal. But what if the NHL decides this time they're not going, and then a few of the players, especially some of the big stars, say, we don't care, we're going anyway? That could be a real problem. So we'll see what happens. It's going to be interesting to see how all this works out. The third story to come out of the general managers' meetings is that the Swedish Ice Hockey Federation went to the NHL GMs and basically asked them to leave their young players playing in Sweden rather than taking them out of the Swedish leagues and putting them in the AHL. I kind of understand that because losing those young players is hurting the quality of the teams in Sweden. And of course, it's harder to sell tickets if your product isn't as good. So we'll see how the NHL reacts to that. I don't think there was much of a reaction yet. Maybe they didn't expect this. I don't know. The next story to come out was that the NHL has stated that they may not release the protection lists for the upcoming expansion draft. As you all know, or most of you know anyway, the NHL is adding a team in Las Vegas, starting with the 2017-2018 season. And so this coming June, there's going to be an expansion draft where each current team in the NHL is going to be allowed to protect a certain number of players, and the rest of those players will be exposed and could be drafted by the new Las Vegas Knights, I believe. Correction, the Las Vegas Golden Knights. So now the NHL is saying, well, we might not release the protection list. We may not tell the public what players are protected. You know, I think the hockey media is going to do a good job of telling everybody whose names are on those lists and whose names aren't anyway. So I don't think that's all that big of a deal. I'm sure the NHL would like to have those names protected, but I don't see that happening. I think most of the bigger names that are exposed to the draft or are protected from the draft will be made public somehow. So that's about it. That's what's going on in the world of hockey and with the LA Kings right now. Like I said, their next game is tomorrow night against Nashville. Hopefully, they'll play better than they've been playing lately, and they'll be able to get the win. Thanks for watching the videos. Please subscribe to the channel, and feel free to post comments if you like, and like my videos. Thanks. Have a good one.